Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince is the newest game in the Dragon Quest Monsters series, and some would even go so far as to say it's the worst game in the series. What does this have to do with the video? Practically nothing. Today we're going to be looking at each of the G rank monsters, that being the lowest rank of monsters in Dark Prince, and seeing which one of these are really good, and which one of them are rightfully in the bottom of the barrel. So welcome everybody, I'm the Feeder of Souls, and if you're interested in Dragon Quest Monsters, that's what I cover, feel free to subscribe. Before I begin, let's make sure I'm clarifying what I'm looking at in my ranking video. I'll be looking at the following things for each monster: the max stats they're capable of, the stat growth for each one of those stats, the skills they learn from their inherent skill set, traits they use while small, and that is it. I am not going to be looking at how you obtain these monsters, what you could synthesize using these monsters, traits they learn while large, or any extra skill sets that give them extra stuff, random talents if you will. I will be presenting information such as how you obtain the monsters and the traits that you obtain while large, so that you can have these information so you can form your own opinion. But besides that, let's stop thinking about you and start thinking about what is the worst monster on this list. You might be wondering, well, we got 75 monsters here in what is probably a ridiculously long video. Who is going to be the worst of these 75 monsters? Well, before we can talk about them, we gotta talk about number 75, the Triple Splatty. Now, Triple Splatty is not inherently a bad monster. They seem to have everything set for them to be a fairly useful healer, maybe not the best, but they could also do a little bit of damage if it came to it. So why is he here? Well, it's because I don't have enough information on him. He is a McDonald's download monster, as a result, on account of a collaboration between Dragon Quest and McDonald's. So I do not have all the information for him that I do for every other monster on this list. Since I don't have this complete portfolio, I can't give him a proper ranking, so he's just down here instead. But he's not a bad monster, and if I had a full portfolio, he'd probably be on the higher end. Now, who is the worst monster? That's number 74, the Stumpchump. The Stumpchump is an absolutely awful monster. Its stats aren't bad, they're more on the average size, but he's a monster based around status conditions. This is something incredibly common with a lot of monsters on this list. As a result, there's not a lot of diversity between these, and you need a lot of really good status conditions that you can use well in order to really stand out. It has two traits it can't use, which are Ultra Crafty Debilitator and Major Downer. These are both really good traits if he had the ability to lower opponent's stats naturally, which he does not. As a result, he only has one trait which he can use well, and he can't even use that well. Finally, his skill set really isn't anything special. It is the skill set known as Nature's Child, which is probably one of the worst skill sets in the game, so don't be surprised if you see it come up a lot more often in the rest of the bottom of this list. Number 73, the Buddy Slime. The Buddy Slime is much better than the Stumpchump, mostly because it has a ridiculously high max wisdom. This does help inflict status conditions, which is good since it's a status condition inflicting monster, but it also seems like it should be a good magic attacker. It doesn't have that, though it has Nature's Child, so once again we have another status condition inflicting monster. It's not even a good one too, as it has multiple skills that really aren't the most useful. He'd probably be better if he had some good offense, but he doesn't. Honestly, he could be higher, but I just don't like him. Number 72, the Ornery Onion. This monster is also follows a similar way to the Buddy Slime, where his HP, MP, and Wisdom are all pretty good. So, but we get to the skill set, and once again he has Nature Child, so nothing too good. And then we go to the traits, and the traits are all pretty bad. Rando SL is nothing special, Big Bully is practically useless, and Evasive Impulse is nothing to write home about. So combine that with his stats and status conditions, he's really not that good. Number 71, the Spitnik, another contender for probably the worst monster on here. His stats are all incredibly average. The only exception to this is his Wisdom, which is just absolutely terrible, and his attack, which is somewhat pretty good, so it makes it seem like he's going to be a fairly useful physical attacker. So it's hilarious when you take a look at his skills and realize that he has a bunch of Sizz magic, which he can't use. In fact, everything is saying don't use it. Everything is built around this fact, and so he can't use any of it well. He also has some decent traits that work with the magical aspect, but he's not a magic attacker, so it's all practically useless. Number 70, the Cruelcumber. Stat growth, it is all average right here. Now, another thing I should probably clarify is that when I say average, I mean in the context of G rank monsters. If average for Cruelcumber is not average for Zoma. But besides that, average stats all around, so nothing special. He has the skill set Blowy Slashes. This is a decent skill set with some wind magic and some occasional physical attacks, so it's very decent, but he lacks some really good traits. Ultra Crafty Debilitator practically can't be used, Bangmeister's useless, so Stunning Skin's the only one worthwhile. So combine that with the fact that there's just much better monsters on here, he's pretty low on this list. Number 69, the Mecha Mina. I probably mispronounced that. He's got some pretty good defensive stats and HP, and his defensive growth is also pretty good, so it makes it seem like our mechanical bird is going to be a pretty good tank. He does not. He has Zapmeister, which he can't even use. He has Whoosh Aficionado, which is a decent magic attacking skill set, except his wisdom sucks. So he's kind of all over the place where he doesn't have anything good he can do. Yeah, there's much better options, pretty much all over, for this monster. Number 68, the Killer Pillar. This is a glass cannon. Basically, his attack, his damage output, everything is built around this monster dealing as much damage without getting hit. So it's hilarious when you take a look and realize that he doesn't have powerful attacks, but rather status conditions. And he has one trait that points towards status conditions. Ultra Crafty Poisoner is basically useless because unless you have a large one, he can't even poison. So, yeah, he's pretty bad. Number 67, the Mouse Flap. His stats and traits are once again indicating a fast physical attacker. So what do you give this fast physical attacker? Wind magic, of course. And of course its MP is absolutely terrible, so even the spells it can cast it can't use. Wisdom's on the lower end, so nothing special there. So it wants to finish battle quickly, but the only thing that's going to be finishing quickly is it. Number 66, the Wing Slime. Its max stats are one of the lower of all the monsters in which we've seen here. They're all pretty low. Growth is, of course, relatively average to compete with this. It uses wind magic, which is powered up by Ultra Crafty Whoosher, so this is easily the best monster we've seen on here. If it wasn't for the fact that it had Health Professional, which it can't use, which is really a shame because Health Professional is easily one of the best skill sets in the game. As you can tell, we're starting to get to some better monsters, like number 65, the Scallop Slime. Decent defense and wisdom, so it could be either a tank or a magic attacker. For the tank role, you're not going to have too much, so mostly because its skill set is based around water, which is also not that bad, but there's also much better things you can use with it. Its traits are kind of all over the place. Defense, Impulse, and Rando Buff are definitely leaning more towards the tank role, but then you get to Metal Medley, which is not a bad skill if you're hunting metal slimes, but if you're not hunting metal slimes, he's not too useful. So, the Scallop Slime's just not too useful. Number 64, Bago Laughs. This is a monster which I'm starting to think should have been much lower on this list. Stat-wise, it's all fairly average, except for MP, which is pretty good, but then you get to the traits, and they are all really bad. Its skill set isn't bad. It has Decelerate, Sap, Dim, Blunt, so basically weakening things to lower your opponent's stats. So his traits all inflict status conditions, or are good for inflicting status conditions. As a result, they're almost all completely useless. If you were to switch his skill set with the likes of the Stump Chump that we covered earlier, he would have gone way up on this list as a great way to weaken your opponent. But since he can't, he's just a decent way to get it done if you have absolutely no better options, but there are better options. Number 63, the Bantam Weight. The stats are meant for a quick magic attacker, with an emphasis on agility and wisdom, especially when it comes to their growth. So you go to the skills and their physical and tank builds. So another identity crisis here, where he's not sure what he wants to be, but what he does end up being is nothing good. Number 62, the Vikindragora. Attack and MP are pretty good. He has rather sporadic growth all across the board, and things like Close Scraper and Metal Beater are pretty good skills, with Metal Beater being an especially good way to deal some extra damage to all monsters. So what's his big problem? Well, what's his main use? It seems to be physical attacks, right? His high physical attack stat seems to emphasize that. So we give him Sizz Aficionado, and we even give him Ultra Crafty Frizzer, so he has a skill set he can't use, which complements a trait he can't use. That really drags him down, but I guess you can still do normal attacks, so he's not the worst monster on this list. Number 61, Skipper. We have another status inflicting monster here. This one has an emphasis on poison and paralysis. Both of those are pretty good. He has good attack and defense as well, which are useful, but his other stats are pretty middling. And then you actually get to the traits, and once again we have a situation where you can't really use any of them, except Ace Evader, which is, about as generic as you get. So, once again, not that good. Number 60, Lips. Lips doesn't really have too much going for them. They have high HP and MP, and their MP growth is really good. This is another status condition inflicting monster, and it has once again a bunch of traits that it can't really use to good effect, like Ultra Crafty Confuser, since it can't confuse. So, once again, pretty disappointing. Number 59, Putrefido. This is another monster meant to be a physical attacker, but we look at the skills and oh, would you look at that, it's more status conditions. Now, status conditions aren't bad, they're just bad if you're not intended to be using them, and Putrefido is definitely one of those situations. And of course, the traits are all over the place, like Ultra Crafty Whoosher wears your wind magic. So, once again, pretty bad. Number 58, Slime. This is why I had to add the caveat where it's not what you can make out of them that makes a monster on this list good or not, because the slime can be used to get some pretty good monsters. But we are actually looking at the slime, and the slime stats are pretty bad. Attack, they have a lot of HP, they definitely have the worst stats of pretty much any monster on this list. The skill set isn't bad, with it being Slimer, making it a decent offensive or healing role, but it's... when it comes to slimes, there's much better choices, and honestly, generic's not bad, but you can always get better. Number 57, the Small Fry. This one has good attack, HP, MP, but it doesn't have good wisdom or defense, so it makes it seem like it'd be another good physical attacker. Of course, you get to the skills, and they're all breath attacks. Breath attacks aren't bad, but they just don't complement the Small Fry too well, so you're best off just doing normal attacks with him. Then you get to the traits, and once again, nothing too useful, although they could definitely be worse. Number 56, the Komodo. The Komodo is usually a pretty good early game monster, but this is pretty much the exception. It's designed to be a fast physical attacker, but if you look at his skill set, it's designed around being a tank. You actually look at the defense too, and it's just nothing special, so it makes you wonder why he's a tank. And of course, being a tank and having the skill set he does, he still does get a decent physical attack in the form of Attack Attacker. It's just not the best attacking attacker that you could have, so the Komodo's not that good. Number 55, Bambooligan. This is one of those instances where you see a monster you've never seen before and go, hey, that looks really cool, and then you realize it sucks. The Bambooligan is a good physical attacker, it's a decent physical attacker, and then you go to its skill set and it only has Nature Arthur or Gust Slash, so not too many good physical skills. So yeah, that's the main reason why it's down here, another identity crisis sort of thing. Its stats are also pretty average all around the board, so it's just nothing too special about this monster. The traits, though, that's its main problem. The reason why it's this lower down is because its traits are all fairly on the lower end. Number 54, Dragonthorn. Dragonthorn is pretty much a Bambooligan, but better. It has better stats, it has some much better traits, but it's still in the same situation where its best thing it really has limited options for. It does have spiky skin, though, which is a great skill, so that's why it's higher up, but it's still not that good. Number 53, the Pixie. The Pixie is not the worst monster on this list, but once again, we're in a situation where it's built for physical attacks. But you get to its skills, and they're all support skills. Support is always useful, and it's essential to defeating some bosses sometimes, or other, and it can't, yes, once again, support is useful. It's just not meant to do it. It's just supposed to do physical skills, but all it's going to be doing is attacking. It's not meant for support, and that's why it's here. Identity crises are very common on the lower end of this list, because if a monster is doing something which it's not meant to do, it's not going to be able to do what it does well. Number 52, the Pterodon. Yes, the P is silent. It has the stats to be a powerful physical attacker, but guess what it has? It has breath attacks. Once again, breath attacks aren't bad, it just can't use them well, and then you get to the traits and they're kind of all over the place. Tit for tat's not a bad skill, I guess, but it definitely could be better. Number 51, the Mad Mollusk. Its stats are all over the place, which is not a bad thing. They're pretty much makes it seem like he's supposed to be another powerful physical attacker. He's another status-inflicting monster. What he does have, though, that really does help him out is Insta-Bounce, which is an absolutely wonderful trait to have, and is incredibly useful, which is the main reason why he's not lower by Lips, who shares a similar skill set. Number 50, Toadie. Toadie is designed to be a powerful physical attacker. The amount of monsters that are designed to be physical attackers is not that surprising. The amount of physical attackers that are actually good is surprising. Toadie has water magic. Now, water magic can be useful, you just can't use it well. I mean, he does learn some extra stuff if you make him large, but at that point, just find a better monster. Number 49, the Nardragon. Here's another example of someone who's meant to be a physical attacker. By the way, his max stats are the weakest of pretty much every monster when it comes to average, but that's not what we're looking at. He is designed to be a tank build with his skill set, but he's not meant to be much of a tank, so he does fall into a similar situation with the Komodo. The main difference is he's much better at physical attacks than the Komodo, so ultimately there are worst choices, but he can also serve somewhat decently as a tank if you have no better options. But you'll have better options. Number 48, the Bludgerigar. I hate this monster, I'm not going to explain why. His stats are mediocre, his growth is fairly lower. His skills are wind and support, but he doesn't have the good stats for a damage dealer. His traits are just kind of all over the place, so I'm not really sure what to say. He probably should have been lower. But at the same time, it's not a matter of him not doing something well, it's just a matter of what he does, he just does mediocre. Number 47, the Slimeshrew. When it comes to his skills and his traits, he seems to be a status-inflicting tank, which could be incredibly useful. So, you look at his stats, and what do we have? Physical attacks. That's right, he's meant to do physical attacks. He still does physical attacks well, and still does a good job of inflicting status conditions. It's just not as good as it could have been, and he really could have used some better skills or stats to really help him get a good roll, but he's still pretty good at what he does. Number 46, the Soft Serve Spook. The stats and stat growth are on the lower end, but he does have a really high max HP, which could be useful. His traits are designed around evasiveness. Now, whether or not you find that useful depends on you, but having a monster that's hard to hit is always something that could help you in the long run. Its skills are light magic. Light magic is of course not bad, no magic is bad, but it has very mediocre wisdom, so it's not going to be dealing too much damage. Will it be annoying to fight? Sure. Will it be too useful? Not really. Number 45, the Pan Piper. Stats are fairly decent, attack and wisdom are pretty good, making it seem like it should be a good offensive choice. It has the skill set Dancer. Dancer is a very weird skill set to talk about, so I'm just gonna say that when it comes to the amount of Dancers we have on this list, Pan Piper is definitely not the best choice. Number 44, the Fat Rat. His traits and stats, what do they indicate? Another powerful physical attacker. What skill set does he have? Crag Aficionado, which actually doesn't practically give any physical attacks except Beast Tamer, and how often are you going to want to use Beast Tamer? Now to be fair, the Crag line of skills is pretty good, but besides that, you look at his wisdom and relatively bad. Now they are monsters with much worse wisdom, but at the same time, it's just not that good. Doesn't have the tools he needs. Number 43, Fret Bulb. Here's a monster similar to the Soft Serve Spook, where it's designed around evasiveness, except it's going even further with having more skills and traits based around it. Other than that, stats are average, stat growth is average, and skills are buffing and debuffing, which does make him more useful as he has a reason to stick around, which is to make you stronger and your enemies weaker. Number 42, the Damselfrye. He is incredibly fragile, although he is insanely fast to make up for this. So, what does he do? He stalls the opponents using stun, and using blindness, and using sleep, and basically the point is to prevent your opponent from attacking you due to his insane speed. However, he's going to be the most useful when he dies on account of having Benefaction, which is probably one of the best traits in the game. So, you're just going to want him to die, and honestly, you're going to probably want a monster that can do a little bit more before they kick the bucket. Number 41, Winky. Stat growth, it's all on the lower end, but its attack is pretty high, so it does seem like it should be a good physical attacker, and normal attacks are pretty good. You go to the skill sets though, and it's pretty much designed around shutting down magic attackers. Now, as you've seen, as we're practically halfway through this list, magic is very common, so being able to shut that down can be useful, but also, monsters have the ability to normal attack. So if you need a specific magic counter, Winky could be useful, but it's much too specific for him to be too much higher on this list. Number 40, Mud Mannequin. Remember how I said there are better dancers than the Pan Piper? This is one of them. He's a pretty powerful physical attacker, and with the dance skills, he does get some pretty good physical attacks. He's also capable of dancing, which is just alright, but they also have the trait Personal Grudge, which is basically the reverse of Benefaction, which weakens the opponent when he dies instead. So he's pretty good all around, except for Crackmeister, which he can't even use. Number 39, the Killer Gilla. Poison. Everything about this guy is poison. Poison skills, poison traits. He is all about inflicting poison, which is a great trait. Great skills, great status condition. Poison's great. But at the same time, when you get to immunities and all that other nonsense, poison is a very common one, and focusing all your eggs on a single status condition is definitely something you don't want to do, which is why he's not higher on here. Number 38, the Fungal. This is pretty much as mediocre of a monster as there is on this list. His stat growth, they're all pretty much average, a little on the lower end. Status conditions, all on the lower end. Kind of a focus on sleep, but it's all on the lower end. He's just an average monster, which makes him an averagely useful status condition inflicting monster. Number 37, the Bubble Slime. What have they done to you? The Bubble Slime has high HP and MP, so his traits are Slimer. No, his skills are Slimer. His traits are also pretty good. So I guess he could be a tank or a healer role, but there's much better choices and there's much better tanks, so unless you want somebody who's good with poison without focusing on it, there's probably better choices. Number 36, the Airbagon. The stats are leaned towards a physical defensive build, and it learns a couple of pretty good physical attacks, which is useful. And then it has a bunch of explosions, which it can't use, and it still has a handful of skills, which it can't use. What it does have that is incredibly useful, though, is Insta-Bounce, which allows him to reflect magic. That's probably one of the reasons why he's not a bit lower on this list, although at the same time, fairly solid monster. Number 35, Pharaoh Ball. He has good HP, good MP, good wisdom, and blowy slashers, so he has some wind skills that this monster can actually use compared to every other blowy slasher we've seen so far. That's why he's up here, because he has a skill set that he can actually use. It's pretty crazy, isn't it? Number 34, Lunatic. Lunatic is not bad. His stats, stat growth, are both on the lower end, but he has pretty good HP and wisdom, so it seems like he's a good magic attacker. His skills are good magic. He has Crackle, Crack, so he can deal some solid ice damage, while also inflicting a handful of status conditions and weaknesses if necessary. It really is a shame then that he has the trait Sizzmeister, which he can't really use. Besides that, he's a fairly solid, well-rounded monster. Number 33, the Bodkin Archer. His max stats and growth are once again on the lower end, but his skill set of damage and status conditions and a good set of traits could make him a fairly good thief if you needed somebody who could do damage while still weakening your opponent instead of just focusing on one or the other. Besides that though, if you wanted just one or the other, then there are better monsters that just do one or the other. Number 32, Capsicum. He has good stats, especially his attack and HP, and he has the trait Spiky Skin, which is a, once again, great trait. Besides that though, the rest of his traits aren't that useful. We get to his skill set though, and he does do a really good job of being a healer or supporter role, which is pretty good, and it's always useful to have one of those on your team, and Capsicum is definitely one of the better choices, although we'll see later, there are much better choices, there's also much worse choices. Number 31, Fromage Frey. Now the Fromage Frey has some fairly good stats, especially when it comes to wisdom. Basically, he's another person who's supposed to be a mage, and he actually does a good job of it too. With stats like Insta-Ping and skills like Crag and Craggle, he can do some pretty good damage. Now of course, is his skill set perfect? No, he has way too many physical attacks for his attack stat being as mediocre as it is. But for a magic attacker, you could definitely choose much worse. Number 30, the Draki. This guy is really fast. He also has Zammeister, and Zam Aficionado is the name of his skill set. So what he wants to do is pretty clear. He's a very fast dark magic attacker, and he does pretty good at it. The main reason why he isn't the best choice for this role is because although his agility is crazy high, his wisdom is a bit on the lower end. So he definitely will be able to deal a few hits that just wouldn't deal as much damage as some better mages do. Number 29, the Durol Drone. I intentionally mispronounced that, don't worry. Stat growth, all average, very average. He has a pretty good trait synergy with both Magic Drainer, Ultra Crafty, and Spongy Skin, which allows him to drain plenty of MP every single time he has that opportunity. Skill set's nothing too special. Once again, it's just another example of him trying to weaken the opponent, although having Drain Magic as a skill really makes it clear he's stealing MP. Unfortunately, he once again has a trait which he can't use in the form of Ultra Crafty Spellbinder, so there's still better choices. Number 28, Lampling. I think you're starting to get what the theme of these guys are here, where they're still pretty good, but there's much better choices. So what do we get when we look at the Lampling? Average stats. Another meant to be powerful magic caster. His wisdom is not as notable as some other monsters, but at the same time, in the grand scheme of things, it still does a pretty good job doing fire magic. The main problem with him is Ultra Crafty Banger is once again a trait that he cannot use. So, once again, he is only number 28 on this list. Number 27, the Wobbergene. Wisdom is good, MP growth is ridiculously high for a G-rank monster, and it has dances which allow him to stun, and he can even confuse, so pretty much this monster is the epitome of what the dancer monsters we've seen on this list want to be. If you want a monster exclusively so that it can dance, this is your best choice. Now, of course, if you wanted something else, then you probably weren't going for this monster anyways, but the dancing, you can't get a better dancer than the Wobbergene. Number 26, the Stringfella. Stats and stat growth are all exceptionally mediocre. Now we get to the skills though, and he has poison and paralysis. Now of course we've talked about this before, those are pretty good, but the main reason why he's up here is because he doesn't do anything bad. He has traits that help him out do more paralysis. He has plenty of decent skills. Honestly, he could be a lot lower, but there's just way much more worse monsters, and he does what he wants to do pretty well, so that's why he's up here. Number 25, the Exoskeleton. This is the first of our many powerful physical attackers that do make up a large portion of the top parts of this list. And he has pretty good physical skills as well to complement his fairly decent physical attack. His traits are also pretty good. Sleep Twitch is a great skill in exactly one situation, and Dodge Denier is also a wonderful skill if you're fighting one of the more evasive enemies which could appear on your path. But at the same time though, if you want a powerful physical attacker, you don't need to choose someone with a couple gimmicky traits, there are much better options. Number 24, the Gremlin. The Gremlin is a weird monster. When you look at his stats, they're pretty good. MP is exceptionally good, and Wisdom's pretty impressive as well. So, what are its skills? What are its traits? Well, its traits aren't going to be too useful. Major Downer does have its uses, although it's clearly not what it's intending to go for, because when you look at its skills, what you see is support. That's right, it's really good at healing status conditions and inflicting one or two as well. Is this a bad thing? Not at all. It learns Zing really quickly. Well, not really quickly, but it learns Zing, which is always useful to have, and it's capable of clearing pretty much any status conditions. Now, whether or not you find status conditions annoying enough that you need constant healing for them, that's completely on you. But if you do needed that extremely specific situation, the Gremlin will be your best choice. But when it comes to healers, you can heal a lot more from a lot better monsters. Number 23, the Wax Murderer. Stat growth, they're all on the average end, as should be expected at this point. His skills are all Frizz, and yeah, so that pairs well with his Frizzmeister. A lot of fire damage all around. He could inflict either magic or physical damage, giving him some variety that we don't see on a lot of monsters. Funnily enough though, the variety is literally just magic or physical attack, so it's not nearly as varied as it could have been, but besides that, it's still a pretty solid fire offense, if that's what you're looking for in a monster. Number 22, Gunachi Goody. His stats are pretty bad. Especially when it comes to his stat growth, this is probably one of the lowest on this list. So why is he so good? That's because this is another example of a monster that wants to die. Before we get into that, let's look at its skills and, once again, status conditions. Mostly Sleep, which is a fairly decent skill. You don't want to use it on the Exoskeleton, but besides that, not too bad. But the main reason why he has up here is, once again, because he wants to die. Benefaction is absolutely great, so when he does kick the bucket, and that pairs incredibly well with his bigger upper, allowing him to buff up his allies even more than they possibly would. Plus, of course, if you have the ability to revive, you can do it over and over again to reliably buff up your party. Are there better ways to buff up your party? Oh, most definitely. But this is the best monster that intentionally dies, and it's built for that duty, so I can't really give it too much flack there. Number 21, Sacksquatch. Sacksquatch? Whatever. Bag of Sand has higher stats, but the stat growth is on the lower end, balancing it out just a bit. His skills are Crag. He has Cragmeister paired with Crag skills, so he's going to be doing lots of earth damage, and earth damage is really good. He also has Ultra Crafty Dazzler, so this is another trait that he can't use. However, he is probably going to be one of the last monsters on this list that has that problem, which is why he's not higher up on this list. He's a pretty good earth mage. There are better choices for mage, but if you specifically wanted earth damage, he's a great starting point. Number 20, the Mischievous Mole. This guy is great attack stat, so he's clearly meant to be a damaging attacker. And he does a fairly decent job at it too. When you get to his skill set, things start seeming a little bit weird, like he's almost meant to be a status condition inflicting monster, and he sort of is. However, some of these also pair well with his normal attacks. Skills like Poison Attack and Poisonous Touch make it so that you can still benefit from his physical damage dealing, while also inflicting those negative status conditions. So he works out pretty well as a status conditioning inflict physical attacking monsters. However, that's a very weird role, and there's still monsters that do it better. For example, number 19, the Ghost. Stats are pretty much better all around, but its growth is kind of all over the place, with things like Wisdom and MP getting pretty high growth and HP and Defense getting pretty low growth. His skill set of Graveheart is a great skill set. He also has traits such as Spongy Skin and Stunning Touch, so it's clearly another example of monster that wants to weaken your opponent. And once again, he does a great job of doing it. Does he inflict as much physical damage as the Mischievous Mole? No, but he's much better at inflicting status conditions while dealing damage. So honestly, these two could be interchangeable depending on which one you value more, but ultimately I felt like the Ghost was a better choice. Number 18 is the Great Sabercat. Here's another pretty good physical attacker, and its variety of traits are all fairly useful, especially the combination of Ultra Crafty Stunner and Strangely Alluring. However, as good as this monster may be, there is literally a monster on this list that does everything the Great Saber Cub does, but better in almost every way, so when we get to that monster, I'll explain it. Number 17 is the Teeny Sanguini. High HP, MP, agility, so it's a pretty fast growing monster. So what's the weakness? Well, it's pretty fragile. This is another example similar to the Draki or the Damselfly, where it's another fast attacker. However, unlike the Draki, which does dark magic, the Teeny Sanguini uses dark magic, but paired with that dark magic is instant death. This is a monster that wants to kill as quick as possible, and it has pretty good traits that can help it endure longer throughout battle as well, so it does benefit from those in the long run. Is it the best monster? No. Should it be this high up on this list? Probably not. But at the same time, look at that face and try not to die when he casts Whack on you, which is pretty good at this point in the game. Number 16, the Bunnycorn. A pretty good physical attacker, he has a really good skill set of inflicting physical attacks with status conditions involved. His skill set of Late Bloomer, Spiky Skin, and Attacking Impulse help him last in long matches, which with his mirage of status conditions, make him capable of causing said long matches. So he just gets pretty useful the longer and longer these battles go, and he's really good at making them go long, so he's fairly decent if that's your playstyle. Number 15, the Skeleton. This is the last of the monsters that's similar to the Mischievous Mole and the Ghost, being the best monster that can inflict status conditions with their physical attacks. His biggest weakness is his lack of MP, but once you get past that, you have a pretty powerful physical attacker that also inflicts some pretty powerful status conditions. Is it the best choice in every scenario? That depends on whether or not you value status conditions, but if you want status conditions while still being able to inflict good damage, the Skeleton's going to be one of your best choices. Number 14, the Candy Cat. The real reason why he's this high is because his traits of Ultra Crafty Stunner, Insta Bounce, and Late Bloomer are crazy good, especially since he can actually inflict stun using his skill of Tongue Bashing, which you'll eventually learn. Besides that, this is just another fairly decent status condition inflicting monster, probably not the best one, but once again, Insta Bounce is crazy good and Late Bloomer is great in long battles, so that's why he's up here. Number 13, the Stark Raven. Stats? High. Skill set? Great for buffing skills, and even some wind magic to really help give him that extra push. He also has the trait Tit for Tat, which is a great trait, and is really good at countering status condition and inflicting monsters. His other traits also aren't that bad, although they're not nearly as useful, so it's just a pretty good supportive / offensive role if that's what you need. Number 12, the Fire Spirit. He has Frizz skills along with Frizz traits. It works out really well. Is it the best fire attacker? Well, that's up to you to decide. However, I'm going to say he is a pretty good magic attacker. He does lack variety, as becomes the case with a lot of good monsters, but he doesn't need that variety because he can do some fairly solid fire damage, which if you need that, that's probably one of your better choices. Number 11, the Leery Lout. We're looking at a monster that's meant to be a tank. We haven't seen one of these in the entire list. Now, of course, along with being a tank, it's also meant to be a powerful physical attacker. So what is its skill set? Powerful physical attacks and tank skills. It's great for whatever it wants to be. If you need a tank, this is a good choice. Physical attacker, good choice. However, if you wanted only a tank or only a physical attacker, there is a monster that's better at just doing physical attacks and a monster just doing tank stuff. We'll get to both of those later. Number 10, the Sham Hat Twitch. The Sham Hat Witch has some fairly high stats, but it's counterbalanced by its fairly low growth. He has some breath attacks, which he does use pretty well, but once again, similar to the Candy Cat, his traits are really what's helping him carry up. Benefaction is once again a great skill, something in which I want to make sure I emphasize every opportunity I can. Somnolent Skin's not that good, but Last Legs is an incredibly reliable way to help him last for longer. It can help make sure that when your Sham Hat Witch dies and bestows your Benefaction, that he dies when you want him to die, and not just because he got instantly killed. Number 9, the Platypunk. This is the monster that's better than the Great Saber Cub. He's a good physical attacker, albeit with his slow growth being a little bit on the slower end, but his skill set is much better at doing powerful physical attacks while also having a handful of status conditions. Plus, he has the combination of Ultra Crafty Stunner and Strangely Alluring, which is an incredibly powerful way to just randomly paralyze your opponent during the battle. Plus, he's cute. No points taken off for that, but no points added either. Either way, if you wanted a physical attacker with some extra stuff in there that could really help turn the tide, Platypunk's a great choice. Number 8, the Cumulus. This is a glass cannon, and unlike the glass cannon we saw way back near the start of this list, this one actually has powerful attacking skills, mostly in the form of wind magic, that being whoosh and swoosh. His stat growth is also fairly low, but at the same time you can't expect it to be too high considering the rank of monsters we're looking at. He has Benefaction, which I have said multiple times and I will say again, is an absolutely wonderful trait to have, especially on a monster that's more fragile. So since he's easy to die, when he dies you're still able to get some benefit off of it, but as long as he's alive, he's going to be dealing some pretty heavy damage. All in all, incredibly reliable monster to use on your team. Number 7, Ant Guzzler. The Ant Guzzler is one of the last powerful physical attacker monsters on this list and could be the one you want to choose if you want a powerful physical attacker. This is mostly because along with his pretty well done stats of a high 610, he also has good physical attacking skills. He also has great traits. Metal Beater is always a wonderful skill, especially on physical attackers, and the combination of Ultra Crafty Stunner and Stunning Touch gives him some much needed diversity if you don't need physical attacks, but rather some extra status conditions to help mix up your plays. When it comes to diversity, he may take the cake for physical attackers, but there is another physical attacker that we're going to be seeing very soon that just gets pure damage and does pure damage for physical attacks the best. Before we talk about that though, we gotta talk about number 6, the Calamari Kid. HP is pretty good. Growth is kind of not good though, which kind of balances out his best stat. The rest of his stats are just average, kind of leaning towards the lower end. So why is he so good? That's because he has the skill set known as Aquapothecary, which I somehow pronounced correctly. Aquapothecary gives him access to both water magic and healing moves. Healing moves which are always great to have in water magic, which he's able to use well with both Splishmeister and Ultra Crafty Splisher. Is he meant to be a powerful damage dealer? No, but he can be a decent damage dealer until you need healing, in which he's able to do that as well. This is also helped by the fact that his MP stat isn't horrible, so he'll be able to reliably do what he wants to do for as long as he does it. Number 5, the Blinkster. Stats are all around pretty good. Wisdom especially is one of the best that we've seen so far. One of the main reasons why this monster is so high up on this list is because he has something that no other monster on this list has really been able to have, and that is diversity. His skill set covers almost every single kind of just plain offensive magic, from explosions to fireballs to ice to wind. So he has pretty good coverage, and especially in the early game, if that's something in which you're looking for, he has it, along with just being a powerful magic attacker. The main weakness you could look at is the fact that his MP isn't exceptionally high, or the fact that because he has the lowest version of all these magic skills, he doesn't learn any much better magic by himself, but it all depends on whether or not you determine power or variety to be more powerful or useful in any given situation. I personally consider power more powerful, which is why there's better mages on the top of this list. Number 4, the Shell Slime. This is the best tank in which you could choose out of your G rank options, especially when you look at his defense and the fact that he actually has 5 stars of defense growth. His defense is just crazy high. His growth is pretty crazy high to match with that. You look at his traits and they're all crazy good, with the exception of Ultra Crafty Paralyzer, which is really his biggest weakness, is that trait he can't use. His skills? Great tank skills. This is not only a tank that can tank hits really reliably, it also punishes your opponents for doing so, and the fact that he also learns heal and mid-heal means he's going to be able to keep himself alive to make himself more and more annoying. If you want a tank and you want it to be G rank, the Shell Slime is your best option. Number 3, the most powerful physical attacker, the Hammerhood. Well, most powerful G-rank physical attacker. Highest attack of any monster on this list by far, and it's able to use it well. Its traits of Critical Triumph, Metal Beater, and Instant Oomph are just all pure damage. Its skills are almost all sheer damage. This monster has one thing in its mind, and that is destruction, and it does a really good job of doing that. So if you want a reliable physical attacker, this is pretty much as powerful as it gets. But once again, if you wanted more diversity in your physical attacks, that's where the Ant Guzzler could have been the better choice. But for just straight strength, this is your best choice. The number 2 monster on this list is the Lump Wizard. This is easily the best mage out of the G-rank options. When you look at his stats, they're all incredibly good, especially his Wisdom, which tops up pretty high at 600. Growth is nothing too special, but it's also not bad either, so it's already looking good. You look at his skill set and it doesn't seem too special, once again being focused on wind magic similar to the Cumalis. What he does have going for him though is once again incredibly powerful traits. Wooshmeister, Ultra Crafty Woosher, and Critical Theorist are all great traits when it comes to inflicting massive amounts of damage for wind magic, and since he has wind magic, he is able to use it well. If you want just pure straight magical damage and don't very much care about the element, the Lump Wizard has you covered. Are there better choices for variety? Sure, but when it just comes to straight damage of a single element, Lump Wizard's gonna be your choice. So, any guesses on who the number 1 monster on this list is? Because here's your chance. The number 1 monster on this list is number 1, the Heel Slime. Honestly, when I started making this list, I was surprised to realize that this is a G-rank monster. You look at his stats, and with the exception of his attack, which he's never going to use, these are all really good, especially his Wisdom and Agility, which are both definitely on the higher end. It's also able to use these well, because when you look at his skills, it's healing. Not only does he learn the classic heal mid-heal that's become common amongst healers on this list, he also learns access to Kazing if you put enough skill points in. Kazing, you know, the revive spell that guarantees revival if you use it. He also has pretty good traits that benefit him. Health Professional just actively strengthens all his healing magic, Rando Mister can help keep him alive, and Benefaction will help you so that when he does eventually die, he's still supporting your party. All around, if you need healing, which is almost always essential in any RPG in which you play, this is going to be the best option for Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince. And it never hurts to have a Heal Slime on your party, because the ability to heal is something you're always going to want to do. Except if you're at full health, but if you're at full health, that's not going to last for long the moment your opponent touches you. That's why I believe the Heal Slime is the best G-rank monster in the game. And that is the end of the video. Well, this was a long one, probably the longest video on my channel to date. And it's going to be the longest video on my channel for a while, because this took forever and I ran into all sorts of problems making this. But I enjoyed it, and if you enjoyed this video, you can like this video to show that you liked it. You can also subscribe to the channel if you're interested in Dragon Quest Monsters content, and leave a comment below letting me know what your favorite G-rank monster is and why. Now, before we go, we gotta get to the question of the every other week. I asked a ridiculously hard one last time, mostly because I couldn't come up with a good one that had to do with the video I was talking about. Fortunately, 2 people were still able to give it their best shot, that being Dr. Coelho Sephiroth and that being Speensro. So thank you guys for giving it your best shot. They were able to correctly guess these 2 monsters. The rest are still a mystery, so if you know who those are, I'll give you bonus points if you can guess who they are. But let's move on to the actual question of this week. Today we looked at all sorts of traits. Well, it's one of the main defining features for these monsters. It can really help define what they're supposed to do. Well, there is one trait that's incredibly generic, and is also, because of that, incredibly common. Do you know which trait is the most common trait in Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince? If you do, comment it down below, and if you do it soon enough, you're going to be getting a shout out in the next video like those guys did earlier. So, what is the most common ability? And yes, we are looking at both traits accessible by small and large, but we are not looking at the tactical commander/genius line of skills. So with that all out of the way, thank you all for watching, and this has been Defeater of Souls.